This is how much the footman's invention is worth in 2025, and Jack Trotter recently became extremely wealthy in Season 3 of The Gilded Age. Gladys Russell's, Thaisa Farmiga, transformative marriage to Hector, Duke of Buckingham Ben Lamb, is the focus of The Gilded Age Season 3, Episode 4. However, The Gilded Age Season 3 also altered Jack's life in ways he could never have imagined. In The Gilded Age Season 3, Episode 4, Jack and Larry made a breakthrough despite their frustrations with their attempts to sell Jack's clock. Jack was understandably shocked to learn that Mr. Russell and Mr. Trotter had sold their clock for $600,000. In 2025, $600,000 is still a lot of money, but when inflation is taken into account, it's a fortune in The Gilded Age. The third season of The Gilded Age is set in 1884. In 2025, Jack Trotter and Larry Russell sold the clock for $600,000, which, when adjusted for inflation, comes to $19,681,530 in current currency. After Larry and Jack decided to divide their bounty 50-50, he informed Mrs. Bauer, Kristine Nielsen, that he would receive $300,000 for his half of the clock earnings. As a result, Larry and Jack will each receive $9,840,765 in 2025 cash. Jack must be thankful that he accepted Larry Russell as a business partner, even though he has doubts about his technical skills. Larry knew exactly what Jack didn't know to ask for in meetings and negotiations. Even if Trotter had accepted the $300,000 that his buyers had offered, he would still have left affluent. Larry, however, resisted and had their offer doubled. If not, Larry and Jack might have only received $4,920,382 apiece. It's interesting to note that Larry Russell decided to pursue his aspirations of becoming an architect rather than follow in the footsteps of his tycoon father, George Russell, Morgan Spector, into his railroad and finance industries. However, the younger Mr. Russell's cunning and brutal negotiating strategies dispelled any doubts about whether Larry had inherited George's business acumen. Larry forced his customers to open their purse strings in order to obtain their clock, even though Jack had a valuable invention to sell. The servants of the Russell and Van Ryn/Forte households have interesting stories, but The Gilded Age is primarily about the haves and have-nots of upper-class 19th-century New York society. The Gilded Age's true theme, the quest for the American dream, is best exemplified by Jack Trotter, who has become a fan favorite. Jack, an orphan in his early 20s, had no other choice but to work at the Van Ryn household. However, Mr. Trotter's diligence and willingness to go above and beyond won him the respect of both his employers, Ada Forte, Cynthia Nixon, and Agnes Van Ryn, Christine Baranski, as well as the butler, Bannister, Simon Jones. It makes sense that Jack desired more than to serve his country for the rest of his life. Trotter can now write his own ticket in life because of Jack's own creativity, a lot of assistance from his friends, and a ton of good fortune. Jack's $300,000 instantly propels him out of poverty and service and into the upper class of New York society, even though it is far from the rumored wealth of a robber baron like George Russell. In The Gilded Age, Jack is a living example of the American dream. The fact that the footman didn't immediately leave service is arguably the most intriguing part of Jack's unexpected wealth. Instead, Mr. Trotter returned to his job at the Van Ryn/Forte home and only told Mrs. Bauer that he was now extremely rich. If wealth will transform Jack in the future, it hasn't happened yet. Rather, Trotter is reluctant to quit his work and the only home that he has ever felt at ease in since becoming an orphan. Nevertheless, Jack Trotter cannot and does not wish to continue as a footman for very long. Jack can easily buy his own house in New York and hire servants when he decides to leave the service. In addition to being in a totally different social class and tax bracket, Jack is unable to simply spend his fortune until it runs out. Mr. Trotter needs to figure out how to make more money. Maybe the young footman is hesitating because of these things. Since she initially paired them as business partners, Marion Brooke and Larry Russell are romantically involved, so it makes sense that Marion would find out from Larry that he and Jack sold their clock. Jack Trotter is putting things off, but he can't hide his newfound wealth from Ada, Marion Brooke, Louisa Jacobson, Oscar Van Ryn, Blake Ritson, and Aunt Agnes forever. Jack's life is about to undergo a significant transformation, which may also affect his romantic life. Jack can now pursue women like Adelheid Aaron Wilhelmi and Bridget Taylor Richardson, who aren't fellow servants. Jack Trotter's $9,840,765 would have made him extremely wealthy in 2025, but his wealth was even more remarkable during the Gilded Age. Jack is a prime example of the Gilded Age's pursuit of the American dream and its realization.